Habibis, what's going on? It's Siraj Hashmi, as you probably already know. And this is Keeping It Halal. Just starting something new. Came up with it off the top of my head. Woke up this morning, woke up for suhoor. It's the 15th day of Ramadan, so I haven't missed a day yet. But basically, the launching point, sort of like the impetus for why I started this, was because essentially Dennis Prager tweeted out. Actually, it wasn't Dennis Prager. It was Media Matters, and obviously, I trust Media Matters with a grain of salt. But this is what he had to say. He had this little clip here. Let me play it for you. Hold on one second.
I don't care what term we use, but I don't see what's wrong with American Indian. What's wrong is that it was used a lot. So they needed something new to show that they are more sensitive. Indigenous people, that's better than Native American even. I think it should be renamed the finest people. That would be better. There was a mass killing of the finest people. I'm going to start a movement to rename the Native Americans. Not to mock Native Americans, to mock the people who change names all the time. How many names have blacks gone through in my lifetime? Colored, Negro, African American, a black. That's 4 different titles for the same human being. What was wrong with Negro? What was wrong with colored? None of them. There's no problem with any of them. Do you know that the NAACP is still the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People? And then African American, that changed too, remember? Because does it have a dash, a hyphen, or not? I don't remember what was connoted by having a hyphen or not.
Okay, so I don't know what Prager's on about. He seemed to be all about wanting to say the N-word if you really wanted to. I mean, if you're just going to say it, just say it. But about his point on like the NAACP, people use person of color all the time. Anyways, that's a side note there. The reason why I started this podcast, or whatever this series I'm going to call it, Keeping It Halal, is because I posted somewhat of a dunk on Prager, and using one of his own memes from Prager University. And the original quote from Prager was, "The lockdown," meaning the coronavirus lockdown, "is the greatest mistake in the history of humanity." And I quote tweeted it saying, with changing out the lockdown and replacing it with Dennis Prager, saying Dennis Prager is the greatest mistake in the history of humanity. All right, so like, I'm thinking I'm being like a real jerk, a real asshole here, and all of a sudden, like, I had this idea that I'm going to try to be nicer to people. So I wake up for suhoor, I'm having breakfast, and I'm like, I'm going to set a challenge for myself. I'm going to try to be nicer to people. I'm not going to try to like go in for the ad hominem attacks and mix it up with all sorts of hyperbole like Dennis Prager does with how the lockdown is the greatest mistake in human history. No, I'm just going to try to be nice to people. And then I woke up around 11:30 or 11 a.m. And naturally what I do, just take out my phone, check my Twitter, see what's going on, seeing how crazy things are. And the first thing I see is this clip from Jimmy Kimmel that was posted by Matt McDermott, and about Vice President Mike Pence and him opening up, or him carrying some boxes. Let me just go ahead and play that for you.
Here he is with no mask on, wheeling boxes of PPEs into a healthcare center and doing his best to lift them. What a hero. Just barely in the door. And since it was going so well, and also because he didn't realize he had a mic on, Magic Mike decided to keep it going. Listen in closely here.
Raise your hand, you, sir.
Mike Pence pretending to carry empty boxes of PPEs into a hospital is the perfect metaphor for who he is and what he's doing. A big box of nothing, delivering another box of nothing.
Okay. That Kimmel clip seems rather innocuous. I mean, it's a late show. Like, it's Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, like, they're going to do all these sort of lampooning when it comes to politicians, right? Like, we shouldn't hold them to the same standards as, say, a news publication like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post or CNN or Fox News or what have you. But all of a sudden, this shit gets tweeted out by Matt McDermott, who is a quote-unquote pollster. I don't exactly know what else he does, but tweeted this out. 75,000 retweets and 185,000 likes as of this recording. Probably will go up. He tweeted this at 9:30 in the morning, went crazy viral, and of course, he was getting called out by people on the left and right for it being basically cut out at a selective point, deceptively edited. It's been called out by my colleague at the Examiner, Jerry Dunleavy. It's been called out by David Mack over at BuzzFeed, essentially making the case that this clip is deceptively edited and you're making it look like he's just carrying empty boxes, not carrying real ones, and that he's just doing it for the photo op. Like, look, okay, like if you want to make it about photo ops, like people are, Matt McDermott over here says additional context to Jimmy Kimmel's segment. With 75,000 Americans dead, Pence is joking about empty boxes of PPE during a publicity stunt after the White House press secretary said they have no time for publicity stunts in the middle of a crisis. Like, first of all, GFY. Like, seriously, like, dude, if you're going to spend that much, like, there's no point in you working in politics. Like, obviously, everybody who works in politics is a hypocrite, and you just have to understand that. But, like, Matt is a bad faith actor, and, there's no room for that type of stuff. If you care about the truth, don't say you care about the truth and then post BS like this. It's crazy. So anyways, I was heated. I mean, like, I'm sounding real Alex Jonesy right now and just being like, I'm pissed, man. I wish I could do a good Alex Jones impression, but here we are. So yeah, that clip got shared by Andrea Mitchell from MSNBC. CNBC wrote a story on it. Aaron Rupar from Vox, Bill Pascrell, and then Kimmel does some bullshit here and posts somewhat of an apology, I guess. This is what he says. He tweets, "It would appear that VP was joking about carrying empty boxes for a staged publicity stunt. The full video reveals that he was carrying full boxes for a staged publicity stunt. My apologies. I know how dearly this administration values truth." Like, my God. I want to jump off a building, like, just from reading that. That is like, look, it's much ado about nothing. But when you boil it down, it's all about truth and facts. And people on the left, particularly Trump critics, have been arguing about how much the Trump administration hasn't been telling the American people the truth. Which, look, if you look at just any administration, and then this is not like a whataboutism claim, like, there is undeniably a strong trend for the government to lie to the people. And the Trump administration certainly isn't above that. The Obama administration, we're just finding out lies now that they told the American people back during the 8 years that Obama was in office that are coming home to roost. I mean, look at Michael Flynn, which we'll get into in a sec. Essentially, what we're seeing right now is people are trying to have it both ways when it comes to the truth. And they want to cry out that they hate that the Trump administration or President Trump or Vice President Pence aren't telling the truth, or Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany isn't telling the truth. And then they post some bullshit like this, like it, and then they say that, like, that's the real thing. And they say, like, are my eyes lying to me? Like, y'all are crazy. moving on, because I'm done with Kimmel. I mean, look, we're looking at other stuff like reopening the economy. April jobs report just came out this week. Unemployment jumped to 14.7%, down from a low of like 3.5%, I think. It's just astounding. Hasn't been that high since they started tracing it. Was it 1948? Crazy high. People are talking about how this is a Trump depression, recession, thinking that like Trump caused all this. Like, okay, if you want to make that argument, the only thing that he's really guilty of is the slow response that the federal government had. But if we're being real honest, the slow response is a result of the Chinese government lying to the World Health Organization and the rest of the world that the coronavirus, they had it under control. Couldn't be transferred or transmitted person to person. Certainly wasn't going to spread beyond China. Certainly wasn't bad in Wuhan, where it started. And then, oh no, you got all the Chinese Communist Party saying, oh, actually it came from America. Fuck out of here. Sorry, I shouldn't be cursing. I'm fasting right now. I'm angry. I'm hangry. I'm angry and hangry. I haven't eaten since 4 in the morning. It's 3:19 right now. If you're wondering what time it is, that's how long I've been going out without food. I mean, look, I've talked to people, and they seem to think that the one thing that would be a good sign about reopening the economy was 14 consecutive days of decreased hospitalizations of coronavirus patients. We're slowly learning, it was reported this week, that New York was, when it comes to having the coronavirus spread throughout the United States, that New York was basically the epicenter. And if you want to make the case that Andrew Cuomo has done a piss poor job at containing the spread of coronavirus, yeah, you can make that case. He's done a really bad job based on the numbers. Yet all of a sudden, everybody's fawning over Cuomo, thinking that he's the he should be presidential material. I mean, you got people like Robert De Niro going on Stephen Colbert, talking about how much he wants to play Andrew Cuomo.
Who do you want to play? Can't say Fauci because Fauci's already been taken by Brad Pitt.
Yeah, yes. He
Cuomo?
I guess I'll play Cuomo. I like.
It's a good part.
Yeah, he's doing what a president should do.
Can you see President Cuomo? Can you see that in your mind?
I could see that. Yes, I could see it. I think, though I'm for Biden and I want everything to go well with Biden, but at least we have a person who is very capable, a very capable backup, if you will, not vice president, but if something would change, which God forbid nothing will change, he would be he's doing a great job. He's doing what any president should do.
Yeah. And what New York deserves, what the world deserves, but he seems like he's a real New York governor.
Sure he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope he sees this, bro. I mean, for one, Cuomo is now basically at the helm of a state that has more deaths than any other state in the country. Obviously, we know this. But just this week, it was reported that more than 1,700 previously undisclosed deaths at nursing homes and adult care facilities, and a tally that included, for the first time, people believed to have been killed by the coronavirus before their diagnoses could be confirmed. That's 1,700 people needlessly dying, people who were discharged from hospitals and sent to basically adult care facilities and nursing homes who died. Most of the deaths are coming from nursing homes just because that's the place where where the elderly are, the most immunocompromised people are. It's just, look, this is a New York State problem at this juncture, and they're trying to apply a one-size-fits-all solution to the rest of the country. States like Georgia and Florida will have no idea what their report back will be, whether they actually have more cases because they reopened their respective economies. We'll see. It's only been a few days since they reopened. But I'm sick of hearing that a lot of these people can't reopen the economy because they can't even spare one death. Like most of the, what was it, reported 60%, 62% of cases in New York, coronavirus cases, were from people who were sheltering in place, who were staying at home. 62%. That's insane. If you didn't think New York had it bad already, just look at what JetBlue is trying to do. JetBlue tweeting tomorrow at 7 p.m., meaning Friday at 7 p.m., our special iHeart New York NYPD and FDNY planes are joining NYC's Clap Because We Care with a flyover salute for our hometown healthcare heroes and first responders. So keep your eyes up and keep a healthy distance from others while watching. Okay, you gotta get a load of this. Look at this flight path. Flying first over Brooklyn, then Queens, then Bronx, then Manhattan, and then down past Staten Island. As if people weren't already worried about planes flying low over Manhattan. 9/11 wasn't even 20 years ago, you guys. Anyways, the reason why I got to Dennis Prager and why I started this whole thing, going back to it, was because Ahmaud Arbery, a young African-American man, was shot and killed while allegedly jogging in Georgia. People were trying to tie it to the fact that he broke in or was part of a breaking and entering, and that they were trying to conduct a citizen's arrest. The two white men who shot and killed him, I mean. And essentially, they're trying to make it about how he somehow deserved to get gunned down. Like, I've seen very few people try to argue in defense of those particular suspects. Now, they've been arrested, they've been charged with murder and aggravated assault. But you got Michelle Malkin over here saying things like, basically dunking on Nikki Haley for expressing empathy and sympathy for the victim and his family, Ahmaud Arbery. She writes, "Put down the virtue signaling freak flag and do your homework, please, Nikki Haley. Why are you enabling hate crime hoaxer Sean King, his BFF college buddy Lee Merritt, and Merritt's mentor, Benjamin Hands Up Don't Shoot, before you know the facts? Reid." And then she posts a link to whatever, I guess her website. Her website title says, "Top 3 Reasons to Doubt the Ahmaud Just a Jogger Arbery Narrative." It seems as if that Michelle Malkin seems to only be obsessed with the fact that it's being pushed by quote-unquote race hustlers. Okay. I've seen a lot of people who aren't race hustlers believe that what they saw on video was a horrifying way to die. And while there's some context left out before and after, it's kind of undeniably true that these two white men, at least one of them, shot and killed Ahmaud Arbery, who looked like he was unarmed, probably was jogging. We have no idea. We'll find out as the case moves on. But you just know in the back of your mind that even a video like this, it's not going to be enough to come up with a guilty verdict. It already took this long to get these two suspects, these two white men who shot and killed Ahmaud Arbery, charged and arrested. But yeah, I got no respect for Michelle Malkin and what she does. She's definitely gone to the fringe right, like to the point where her brain is melting. Moving on, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn got a pretty big win. And by extension, President Trump got a pretty big win after the Justice Department dropped its case against him. Now, back in 2017, Flynn pleaded guilty twice to lying and making false statements to the FBI. And it was about his conversations with a Russian diplomat. I believe it was Sergei Kislyak. So Flynn was only in office for 24 days as the national security advisor under the Trump administration and resigned on February 13th, 2017. What you have to note here is that what ended up happening was there was a document release in late April 2020 of FBI records, and exculpatory evidence surfaced that really helped Flynn's case. And that was concealed from the defense in the beginning. It was concealed from the defense team in the beginning. And basically showed that now fired FBI agent Peter Strzok, who obviously to his notoriety was in a House Intelligence hearing, testified before them, had those text message exchanges with Lisa Page, an FBI lawyer, had an affair with her. Essentially, Peter Strzok prevented the FBI from closing its investigation into Flynn after the FBI uncovered, quote, no derogatory information, end quote, about Michael Flynn. And this made all the liberals mad. And probably made a lot of conservatives mad too. I don't think that many. But for those who were really in Michael Flynn's corner, or in President Trump's corner, some of them let the process work out for itself. And I won't lie to you, I thought Michael Flynn was as guilty as they come. I didn't know that all this stuff that happened with respect to them trying to find out whether the FBI was trying to get him to lie or whether they were trying to get him to admit something. And ultimately, this looks a lot like entrapment. And if you're familiar with entrapment, it's, law enforcement, they help a particular individual try or attempt to commit a crime and then arrest them before they do it. I know this very well because not because I've been impacted by it, but because as a Muslim, I've seen other Muslims impacted by this. And specifically in the last 2 decades since 9/11, a lot of young Muslim males have been arrested and charged for attempting to commit terrorist acts with the help of law enforcement. Now, I'm not saying that these people who are arrested are good people. From what I can tell, it seemed like they had the intention to want to do harm to innocent Americans, men, women, and children. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that they are good people or they're innocent people caught in a trap. By comparison, Michael Flynn, far more innocent than what the FBI and many in the news media were painting him as. But essentially what happened was Michael Flynn's biggest crime was not registering as a foreign agent, doing consultant work for Turkey. And another big crime of his was attending a RT dinner, Russia Today, in which Russian President Vladimir Putin was at. By circumstance. Bad luck for him. Is that a crime in and of itself? I don't think so. Did Michael Flynn get screwed by the federal government? Yeah, I say he did. Does that make me a conspiracy theorist that the federal government looks to screw over people left and right? No, they do that all the time. They've tried to do it to innocent people everywhere. Lastly, Tara Reid. She did a sit down with Megyn Kelly this week, trying to sort of clear the air and respond to Joe Biden after Biden went on Morning Joe, denying that he committed any form of sexual assault against Tara Reid when she was a staffer in his office in 1993.
Let's talk about what he said, because he went on TV last Friday and said, first of all, it never happened. Period, end of report. This did not happen. He did say that in his view, accusers should start off with the presumption that they're telling the truth. Do you think he's afforded you that presumption?
No. I mean, it's been stunning, actually, how some of his surrogates with the blue checks, that are his surrogates, have been saying really horrible things about me and to me on social media. He hasn't himself, but there's a measure of hypocrisy with the campaign saying it's safe. It's not been safe. All my social media has been hacked. All my personal information has been dragged through. Every person that maybe has a gripe against me, an ex-boyfriend or an ex-landlord or whatever it is, has been able to have a platform rather than me. Talking about things that have nothing to do with 1993, like even the whole thing with being called a Russian agent, that in particular, that incites people. People actually, I got a death threat from that because they thought I was being a traitor to America. And I mean, these are serious things. And his campaign is taking this position that they want all women to be able to speak safely. I have not experienced that.
If he's watching this, what do you want to say to him?
I want to say, you and I were there, Joe Biden. Please step forward and be held accountable. You should not be running on character for the President of the United States.
You want him to withdraw?
I wish he would, but he won't, but I wish he would. That's how I feel emotionally.
Do you want an apology?
I think it's a little late.
She also said this.
Do you believe we should believe all women?
I believe in the survivors that have come forward, like Blasey Ford, and the other ones that have come forward. I do stand with them. I think that there needs to be a conversation rather than a hashtag.
Are you in favor of the conversation? I mean, does Joe Biden get due process? Does he get the chance to vet these claims and defend himself? Is that okay?
I think he's been doing that, right? He's had a chance for more platforms than I have.
If I can just go back for 1 second to Blasey Ford.
Yes.
Some of those who supported her, but now have found a reason not to support you, say, well, she was under oath. Would you go under oath?
Absolutely.
They say, well, she subjected herself to cross-examination. Would you do that?
Absolutely.
They also point out that she took a polygraph controlled by someone on her team. Is that something you want to do?
I'm not a criminal. Joe Biden should take the polygraph. What kind of precedent does that set for survivors of violence? Does that mean we're presumed guilty and we all have to take polygraphs? So I will take one if Joe Biden takes one, but I'm not a criminal.
Okay, that's a fair point. Tara Reid bringing up the fact that she'd only take a polygraph if Joe Biden takes one seems fair. Another development is that the San Luis Obispo Tribune reported that a 1996 court document confirms Tara Reid told of harassment in Biden's office. That's the first official corroboration outside of just word of mouth, outside of just saying, my mother called into Larry King live in 1995, 96. My former neighbor can attest to it. No, this is actually something legit. This is harassment. A court document about harassment. But that's the thing is, her story has changed from harassment in the beginning or uncomfortable touching to straight up digitally penetrating her with his fingers. That's a lot. That's a huge shift. It's undeniably true that Tara Reid changed her story from 2019 when she came out with 7 other women to 2020 to when she alleged that sexual assault took place. That's undeniable. I have no idea if what Tara Reid is telling us is the truth. 100% don't know. None of us were there. Joe Biden, Tara Reid were allegedly there. Ultimately, God knows all the truth. And we'll find out in the end, when all this is over. Inshallah. But essentially, despite the fact that the court document details harassment, that's different, obviously, than from assault. So it's certainly better for Tara Reid's case to have this court document surface. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of holes in Tara Reid's story. And I think that the more we're learning, the more this gets fleshed out, the better, hopefully, the truth will be revealed. Obviously, the most frustrating aspect is how Democrats have backed themselves into a corner, being the quote-unquote party of women. You got Dianne Feinstein, who was basically the impetus for Christine Blasey Ford even coming forward in 2018 during the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearing, to now saying, why didn't Tara Reid come out sooner? I don't know, Dianne. Why did you hold on to Ford's letter saying that Brett Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her in the summer of the early 80s without any corroboration besides therapist notes, and no one else could corroborate her story? Do we know if Christine Blasey Ford was sexually assaulted by Brett Kavanaugh? I have no idea. Again, this is one of those things. We cannot 100% know what happened. And that's the most grueling aspect of this, is that based on what evidence we have right now, that's what we have to go off of. We won't fully know the truth. We won't know if Brett Kavanaugh actually sexually assaulted Christine Blasey Ford. I can tell you that the case that was made against Brett Kavanaugh certainly didn't meet muster to prevent him from getting on the Supreme Court. And right now, Tara Reid's case against Joe Biden hasn't really met the full standard to warrant Biden dropping out. But it's the way that it's being handled by those in the media and Democrats to, I don't know, make women sound heard. Tara Reid herself says she doesn't feel like she's being heard. You're seeing a lot of these news outlets initially not even giving her the time of day until her former neighbor, Linda Lacasse, goes on the record with Rich McHugh of Business Insider and says, I remember this happened because Tara told me it happened. Like that's just the bottom line right there, is that there are two different standards at play. But the thing is, everyone who says that there isn't a double standard is lying to you, because there absolutely is. If Joe Biden were a Republican, you could bet your ass that this dude would be out in a week of this accusation coming out. I know this wasn't really that halal. There were a lot of haram things in this episode. A lot of this is just stream of consciousness stuff, so my apologies for some of the profanity and the vulgarity. I mean, look, the idea of keeping people halal is that I try to keep them honest. I'm trying to be honest myself. And if I say something that's wrong, I expect to be called out on it. And I'll look back on what I said and what I've done and see if there's any way I can correct it. I know I won't get anything or everything 100% right, but I'm always trying. So Habibis, thank you so much for keeping it halal. And thanks so much for joining me on Keeping It Halal.